Hi guys, this is Abhishek Rungta, and I'm very glad to introduce to you the first guest, no one but Shivaji Dasgupta. Shivaji has been a acquaintance, a friend, someone I have admired and really appreciated from a distance. He is an independent consultant and a marketing guru. Has worked with some of the biggest brands in the country, guiding them on their journey in terms of their brand positioning, in terms of their channel planning, and everything else. We would learn a lot more about his work as well as how technology is changing his business, his field, and his work. So, thank you so much, Shivaji, for taking out time.
Thank you very much, Abhishek, for all the kind words. And Abhishek, you also have been an inspiration for me, my journey in many ways because of the way you help businesses adopt and adapt technology to grow for not just for profits and ROI, but also to build sustainable long-term futures. And that's something I really respect and like a lot. You are a legend in your own right, and you've also been able to build a world-class business out of Calcutta, which is an inspiration for many in this country, not just in the city as well. And my absolute pleasure and privilege to be here with you this afternoon and, have this session with you and hopefully learn a lot from you. That's the way it is.
Thank you. So, again, we'll keep it very free flow.
Sure, and absolutely.
The idea is to discover, have a conversation, discover the nuances of the new way of marketing, the way you look at it, and also how technology is driving that forward, how that is making a difference, and how companies can take away ideas that they can apply in their business, combining your thought process in marketing and the technology and grow their businesses. So that would be the core. I was doing. Yeah, excellent. So first of all, for all the viewers, Shivaji has recently released this amazing book. Initially, when I was reading this book, I found it a little difficult to read because of the language that Shivaji uses at times, which is laced with little bit of sarcasm and little bit of wit, but really, really interesting in reading. So then I give it a shot again, and I started reading it sitting on a table and started making notes. And there was no stopping because the book is really intense. It talks about things which we want to ignore. I would call him an anti-playbook guy, the way I would like to call him, because lots of things are already set in people's mind, right? Like the very fundamental of segmentation, positioning, all those ideas are so well set in people's mind that people don't want to come out of it. And Shivaji, in his first chapter itself, starts breaking it down into pieces and then suggests a totally new way of doing business for India. And you will talk a lot more about that and how using technology in Indian context for marketing becomes even more important. You'll get there. But before that, Shivaji, tell us a little bit about the core thesis that you really stand for when it comes to your area of work, which is marketing.
But thank you again. So very simply, Abhishek, the whole logic is that we are all set. India is all set to become the world's third largest economy by 2030 or so. Already, as per the latest Kantar study, we find that about top 100 Indian brands are contributing to about 12 or 13% of our GDP. So that's the kind of scenario that we are living in. But yet, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to brand building, when it comes to creating value for customers, our thinking process is still greatly dependent on a certain Western thought colonialism. As you mentioned, segmentation, targeting, and positioning was designed for an American universe by Americans for Americans. And also, till date, we still find that, we have professors coming from all over the world and giving examples of dollar shave club and some such things. When Indian businesses like yourself, Abhishek, and a lot of people who you advise, and there are millions of examples, have really built fundamental global value stories from scratch. So my thinking very simply is that while there can be, and there are many Indias in terms of, say, politics, in terms of culture, in terms of, let's say, in terms of purchasing power and in terms of income and in terms of exposure. The whole thesis here is in terms of our buying process as a customer, in terms of our buying thought process, in terms of the way we approach upgrading our lives, we are actually all the same. So my entire thought process is a threefold process called unify, magnify, amplify, which is to say, do not start with segmentation, which is really about divide and grow. It's a bit like, Lord Clive wants it. So start with unification. And examples, Abhishek, are all in the technology field. It's all because of technology. I think 1 billion internet people in the country have access to internet, smartphones, and so on. We talk of the 2 billion plus UPI transactions happening on a monthly basis. So the whole story is that the way we are buying and unified, the first part is broken up between access and ambitions. So access is in terms of the mobile phone and technology. Call it the Jan Trinity, Jandhan, Aadhaar and mobile, call it everything else. All of us, from Antilla to Antilla's drivers, if I use that term, are actually buying the same way in terms of the process of buying. Okay, we have mobiles, we have a certain cashback, we have a certain many a EMI culture, but it's the same way we are buying. So that's why, and it's no longer the days when, I used to go to Bombay, remember as executives anywhere and go to Warden on, Penzer on Warden Road. All these, these whole stores are only available in Bombay, only available in Delhi, only available in Chennai. Now the entire India has become a universal playing field. So in terms of access, everyone has access to everything. Now critically comes ambitions. Now what I've done in this book is that I've broken up ambitions into 3 very simple parts, which is the first one is survival and replenishment. The second one is more in terms of growth and development. And the third one is in terms of indulgences and passions. Now, what used to be the scene 20 years ago? Poor people would be focused only on survival and replenishment. Maybe the middle classes would be about growth and development, like education, like we used to do competition success review. And the rich people would be more in terms of indulgences and passions. The whole game has changed. Now today you find the Virat Kohli and Shah Rukh Khan who are actually spending more time on survival and replenishment in terms of buying water from this one, kind of a source in Switzerland or one source in New Zealand and so on and so forth. So the point I'm saying is that indulgence and passion today is the prerogative of 1 billion Indians. We are all buying smartphones. We are all buying that, that birthday cake that we all want to have. We are all, so indulgence and passion is now for everyone. Growth and development is again a great leveler caused by technology in terms of upgrading our skills and so on. That's also available to everyone. And survival and replenishment that used to be the prerogative of the poor is now the obsession of the rich. It's the share post-COVID because people are spending so much time on fundamentals as we know it. And technology, just to kind of conclude this part, is the major amplifier, unifier, magnifier of this whole process. If I did not have technology, and I talk more about it as I go forward properly, I would not be able to provide that level playing field. I would not be able to provide the information and the exposure and the knowledge and the, the overall access, if I may say, to the world out loud. So technology is fundamental. And, as you keep talking, I'll break it up into the ways in which it really makes a difference to our lives.
So just kind of getting back on your discussion about ambition. You spoke ambition is about survival, growth, and indulgence. That's really major part of it. And then you also spoke about these 3 things are now getting intermingled. Earlier it was like very clearly defined. At this category of person when only that's on survival, and this person will focus on intelligence because he's rich and he has got everything sorted. That's right. But yes, I think the Maslow's hierarchy that we used to talk about is under extreme pressure, if I can say. That's based on what you are articulating here. And I also see that somewhere because I see people who have a very, very basic pay, but they are buying iPhones on one side. Whereas you rightly said, and like rich of the world, and in fact, like the top players like Shubman, he was very famous recently because he was carrying a water purifier to Indore. That's right, which was a great example. 15-20 lakh rupees they have. So adding that to Indore, and it was all over the news. This means he's struggling to just keep a hygiene water in place based on his standards. So what I also try to understand from this, what you are explaining is that people are now going all across the 3 levels. So they are going across survival, growth, as well as indulgence. Everyone is defining what amount and what extent. So the width and height of each of these elements they want in their life. Absolutely. And it is all their personal choices. It's not necessary. So a person, he can decide, I want to go very deep in hygiene. So for him, it's a necessity. And for that necessity, he might be spending a lot of money if he has. Absolutely. And the other person may actually spend a lot less on hygiene, but he's still spending on hygiene.
Absolutely. And choice, as you say correctly, is the great unifier here.
Yeah.
And choice, which is actually enabled by technology, because technology is the reason why this is really happening in a very big way.
So we have unlimited choices in front of us. And because of those choices which are in front of us, we are now basically creating products and offerings for all category of people. I don't want to use the word category because, as you rightly said, this is a Western philosophy of creating categories and dividing people in different classes. But we would say that for the masses, we are creating products which can fit into different needs. So I think, would you like to say that it's better to divide in needs rather than the segments in terms of buying power and their social behaviors?
It's a great point, and that's really where my second part, which is magnify, where your answer really comes in. Because the unify is really about access and ambitions. Magnify is about a playground and a product. So for example, to me, a definition of a playground is what I call the great Indian appetite. Okay. The great Indian appetite, where Indians are very hungry, so on and so forth. And there are people who are doing for various things there. There's a Domino's delivering pizza in 30 minutes, a Swiggy and Zomato who are delivering anything in no time at all. And there are others who are providing the latest business, which really is mind-boggling, is providing a cook on hire in 10 minutes. This is how this whole economy is dividing. So as you were saying correctly, that, the ambitions remain the same. We all want to upgrade. End of the day, India is unified by this fundamental desire to upgrade. Whoever it is, the Vande Bharat, normal chair car fellow wants to travel executive class. The guy who's traveling by an auto, and look at how, for example, the used car market, the spinnies of the world really are doing. We are all, whether we are Mr. Ambani who wants to buy that next level of business jet, or whether the person who's trying to, move from a non-AC to an AC, they are all unified by this upgradation value system, and the needs, as you correctly say it, is what really is the area of magnification. How does a marketer define what do you really need, what can you afford, and how do I really pitch it to you? But fundamentally at a value level, they're unified by this wonderful thought of upgrading constantly. We are a nation constantly upgrading.
So basically, it's about upward mobility. Uncertainly, everyone wants to be upward mobile. Absolutely. How can you use technology and your ability to communicate and your distribution system to make it available to everybody? Absolutely. So that if they want to choose something, they can choose that and they can make it theirs. Absolutely. They can feel the whole file of being upward mobile.
Absolutely. And it's a non-stop process. In fact, I've done this op-ed in Economic Times about a month back, which was really about what do various countries stand for. So if America stands for, say, innovation or technology, Germany and Switzerland famously stood for precision, and China obviously stands for a kind of, let's say, replication, if I may put it that way. So India, my whole thesis there was India really is about upgrade. And it's a cyclical upgrade. Tomorrow you're now upgrading to environment-friendly solutions. That's also an upgrade at a point. Because upward mobility, subject to our specific needs, is what is the India story, fueled totally by technology. Because technology is the great leveler, the democracy of the peace.
But one incident I remember, in the same day, I was paying for a popcorn outside my office to a hawker, 20 rupees using UPI. The same evening, I was paying for dinner with my client in a 5-star hotel using UPI. So I'm using the same technology, the same process to actually pay for both the interaction. On one side to a hawker on the street and the other side to a 5-star hotel.
Absolutely. And the Amex Gold Card is now, probably locked up in a locker somewhere. Because 20 years ago or 10 years ago, you'd be paying with a client with an American Express Plaid card, and you'd be paying with cash over here. And the other example to your point, very interesting that you say so, is perhaps the evolution of the airport VIP lounges. So the airport lounges till even 10 years back was the place where, you really had to fly business class or have these now it's completely ulta. So now the whole universe is getting into because of various kinds of easy access. And it's become the most crowded place in the universe. So in various ways, it's technology which is, helping us. So in a way, technology is kind of killing our class system. Basically, in a great way. This wonderful point you're saying. Democracy, class unified is actually what, various governments and policies have not done, technology is able to do.
And still maybe normal technology is not able to do, which I think consumers and desirous have driven technology to a point using, access and the use of technology, everything that we do and is available to everybody, that now today technology actually unifies more people than divides. So I think the original marketing techniques would divide people. Today's marketing and technology, driven by technology, is unifying people.
Absolutely, Javier. And I do, again, since all the thing wonderful to you saying is stirring up thought. It's like saying, for example, 20 years ago, the person who would actually have the brand latest laptop or latest television would ideally have an uncle living in the US, or really be super rich one way or the other. Today, what we found, for example, when TikTok was operational in India, and I was living in Gurgaon at that point in time, really found is that it is the domestic assistant who was teaching the meme sahab how to use TikTok. So the whole full cycle of technology. The early adopter was a person, and therefore the bridge, the traditional class divide, as you mentioned, was actually bridged by the fact that the meme sahab needed to, kind of know how to do her dance move on TikTok, because the domestic assistant was the expert in the subject.
Right.
So it's a great unifier. The UPI, is something which is, as you said, it's makes sense for everyone.
And in a way, I also see technology has kind of killed the traditional film industry, which was again a class system. It has literally killed that whole industry altogether. Because today, all the content that is required for entertainment is available on your mobile phone, or your subscription, or of Netflix, or all these hundreds of OTTs which are available. And basically, I went to a PDR, and I saw that they are actually lent out space to all the shops. And these are not high-end shops. These are like, people who have just brought some bed sheets and everything to sell. And it looks worse than a Mila. So all that has kind of started crowding the PVRs and the upmarket, multiplexes, which also shows that now both places which were earlier only open for the classy and the rich ones are now also opening up for the masses, because I think they have some very interesting plans for the week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your thought on, this kind of a disruption on the entertainment side?
No, it's a brilliant question. And again, this again brings me to a larger question of how, it's again the one thing I want to talk about, is how technology is actually blurring the divide between product and service. So if you look at it, a movie once upon a time, was a product which you went to a movie theater and who saw it and so on and so forth. Now it's become a service. It's on your phone. The microdrama industry is now some $2 billion USD in India, or some said the 2-minute microdrama. It's a big thing in India, right? So I think the fact that today a PVR or any of these guys, they really have very attractive entry-level plans. What's happening is that the earlier thought is, where the medium is the message, is now being disappeared. So look, there's a consumption of content. People are consuming content. Does not matter anymore if it's an Insignia seat, or it's my iPhone, or it's a phone that is a cheaper phone, or all of that. But it's providing access to people to go, and so the same person is watching something on a geo connection, which somebody who's far richer is watching it, paying a lot more money on in a period. So I think again, to your point, it's again breaking class barriers in a very, very big way.
But it's missing over years, because I've always believed in lack of classes in anything and everything. Like, be it a business club, or be it airlines, or when we call about these moths, right? And I think class structure is unreasonable and not required, but that has always been the way the world has worked. So we have accepted it, but I think today the world order is changing. Maybe someone may be not very happy, but I'm happy about it.
No, and brilliant. As you keep saying, I'm saying maybe some of these brick and mortar places like the physical mall are the last vestiges of class barriers in a sense. Because what's happening is, because of Swiggy and Zomato, if I don't feel comfortable going to Royal China, I can order the food at home. And you see the kind of way by which access and ambitions, it's somebody's. And this whole point I, picked up here is the fact that, today I want to be there you are, or X is, or Y is. And because of technology and because of my, the doorstep story coming in, I can have it.
And I think to expand the beacon, a lot of these tech companies are also bringing in what I call, foot in the door model, to get the consumer skin. So for example, if someone cannot afford, let's say 500 rupee dish from a particular restaurant, maybe Zomato wants to get this guy as his new client who was not coming in. But now, since he's already started using Zomato, he's offering him that pizza or that particular dish for 100 rupee. Because, underwriting that 400 rupee from his VC money, but acquiring him as a client for long term, because that's the next battleground. They already acquired the rich ones, And now if they want to go and kind of cover the rest of the India, they need to now start making those offers, which was impossible without tech earlier.
Absolutely brilliant. I talk of foot in the door and you mentioned entertainment. A great example is how the first episode of an OTT binge watch is free.
Yeah.
So people are getting you in, the foot in the door. And then if you're addicted, then you will obviously divert some funds and just watch the rest of it.
So Shivaji, you work with lots of FMCG plans and you go absolutely on the ground. Just before this conversation, when we were speaking, you said that I still like to do my field visits, and so talk to people and understand what's happening in the market. Please share some ideas that you gathered from there as what is exactly happening on the ground level, and also how you see technology going deep at what companies should do. Today, there are lots of companies that's trying to follow the old model because that's documented. That's what people talk about. That's what consultants guide on. So, how these companies should know about what's happening on the ground and how they should change their model to get success out of it.
Yeah. So I think very simply to first answer your first part of the question, if I look at what is it that technology really is doing to brands, just keep it very simple. See, what's happened in the world of brands and marketing at large till about a decade or so back, brands were what I would call a promise magnet. You said, come to me and I will give you paradise. And you came to. Now brands have become what I call a delivery system. So brands are no longer a promise magnet, brands are a delivery system. And what is the one word, very common word that, defines or is the essence of this delivery? It is the word called experience. So all of us today are actually evaluating brands by a certain kind of an experience, okay? Which is the part of it is product, part of it is service. So it's like saying today, I'll give you an example of diagnostics, an area I work quite a bit in healthcare. Earlier, I used to go, for example, a Calcutta example like a Dr. Roy in Trivedi, if you really had that finest blood test. Today, as a consumer, I'm evaluating you, the diagnostic, not only or not just for the pedigree of your diagnosis, but for can you give me a report in 1 hour? Can you give me a report in 2 hours? So somewhere at one level, what is happening is technology is creating a new experience code for Indian customers. For everything which there is a transaction, there is a product angle and a service angle. So, and it's quite interesting in sometimes it's playing a role reversal. Services are also becoming products at some point. Earlier, a doctor consultancy used to be like you pay and you come back. Now you're paying rupees X as a product for a knee replacement. So one way that, this whole transformation is happening that, technology is actually helping create that experience. Now, there are three aspects of this experience. The first aspect of this experience is what I would call this experience equilibrium, which I just told you about, which is how the product and service are really coming together because of technology. It's like today, and there's a certain, point of parity that is being established by technology. Though whatever business I am in, whatever I'm delivering, if I don't deliver in 30 minutes, people will think I have a problem. Yesterday, I saw Apollo 24/7 bikes going, delivering in 29 minutes. Bought. So somewhere technology is creating an experience equilibrium of product and service, which is the biggest thing that's happening across industries. And if I look at it, I have an example of this latest Blinkit 10-minute thing that's really happened. Right, so now we can't have 10 minutes, we have other things. A company like Spencer's Jiffy, who now, Jiffy is a service that they have, which is their home delivery service. They're delivering in 30 minutes, okay. But somewhere still, it's a product and service combination, which technology, it's the app, it's the way you do an app, that's the way it is. Creating this equilibrium, okay. That's something, I already mentioned to you this, domestic staff on call for 10 minutes. So what's happened suddenly, once a technology platform is established, the experience platform is established, the services, tomorrow I'm suggesting that, they can be a mental health professional coming in 10 minutes. Tomorrow they can be, now the world is your playground because technology has defined the experience platform that what you need, indulgences and, kind of needs is available at your doorstep at the lowest possible time frame. That is the biggest story the technology has done. And you really think about it and go wide. And I talked to a few clients who are doing this kind of work as well. Blinkit already has experimented with ambulances in Gurgaon. There's a 10-minute ambulance service that already is there, and somebody was using it and spoke on LinkedIn. I don't think the person has an interest, but about how it was brilliant. It came in 8 minutes and it was as good as a hospital and life. So what is technology doing? Fundamentally, to your point, in marketing and brands, it's creating a certain what I would call a service level foundation.
So here, what I understand from you, or what you are trying to say here, I'm just trying to summarize that, is that experience equilibrium that is being reset in industry, in the blue industry, and it's cross industry. It's not in one industry. So if a particular experience has been delivered in X industry, so that's a people from other industries or start delivering that, or consumers in every industry wants to now experience that particular industry, and that is basically now becoming the new normal. Absolute. So the new standard. So now the experience equilibrium numbers come here, which is a product plus service at this level. Now other company has to come and beat it. So delivering at this basic level is now becoming the survival need.
That's right. That's
So if I also kind of try to derive from your thoughts, companies need to use technology to keep improving the customer experience, and not randomly, to look at what's happening in their industry and adjacent industries and see how those experiences can be brought in by their brand, if it's feasible for them, of course, and then see how they can bring a next level of experience. And basically, we get an edge. So today, the brand's strength is more by the experience they deliver and less by the promise they make. Absolutely.
absolute. And again, very interesting to point you said, for example, let's say this, whatever you call it in terms of technology, this whole moving device of a rider coming to your house.
Yeah.
That was probably started by Uber, then subsequently followed by Swiggy, Zomato. But that's become a point of parity across any industry, which has every customer will want that photo to come in to understand how far that the delivery person is from a house. Okay. That's a good side of it. Other thing I picked up was Urban Company has picked up this whole tipping thing from Uber. So if you now they're saying pay your person rupees extra. So again, it's all point of parity based on technology. People are following, as you were saying, reaching the level of experience foundation. And then it's up to someone to, kind of surpass it. And the next frontier from Uber can be, your phone, there will be direct, RFID kind of a thingy coming to your phone, which will tell you where the car is. I'm just thinking reasonably widely, nothing major. So that's a huge point. And the second point linked to this is what I would call, again, it's a part of my book, E2E, which is experience to endorsement. And again, it's something I always, tell my clients, and I'll give you a few examples. It's like, for example, saying today, it's fair to say that none of us go to restaurants or watch a movie based on paid advertising. Right? I mean, restaurant business per se is all, or hotels, TripAdvisor. So where we go in holiday, which hotel we stay, which restaurant we eat, is purely a user experience conversation, what I would call experience to endorsement. Okay, now interestingly, what happens is, how can businesses motivate customers to quickly give an experience when they are still very much, in the part of a consumption process? Because at that time, he is having the experience. So that's the best time to catch him to deliver that endorsement of that experience in that point itself. Absolutely. So for example, if I'm in a restaurant and someone says you have 10x points of a dessert free, if you can already put up on Insta and let us know how you like it, for example. I mean, that to me is the next level of technology-enabled experiential marketing. I mean, if you're sitting in an aircraft and you're in Emirates business class, I mean, the time to give that review is just when your phone is being switched off before landing. So if I can create a kind of a reward and, kind of a recognition mechanism, wherein because the E2E channel to me is a very, very spontaneous and kind of a channel that technology is, and increasingly today it's practical. Today, doctor is no longer a recommendation of patients. Doctor is a recommendation, and I mean not a recommendation of technicality. It's about what patients are saying. It's also ratings. Doctors are ratings, lawyers are ratings. Everyone is pretty.
So tomorrow we can expect that all of us are actually carrying a rating on top of our head.
Correct.
Especially in the VR world, you need to always see that yes, this is Shivaji, and for this particular subject, his rating is such and such.
Perfect. And I feel at times that if I look at E2E again, I mean, not the perhaps I'm really thinking aloud. It's done in the book as well. It's like matrimonial. It's a big business. Hey, what if AI could actually take it to the next level, or maybe this E2E coming, wherein a larger community objective is to reduce the rate of failed marriages? Because you actually not just a kind of primitive analysis, but more something by the friends, by community, very people, as you said.
Can you study failed marriages? Can you bring that data point? Can it create algos, which basically allows you to avoid a failed marriage, or at least gives you warning signs before you are getting into it? I know it's too much of tech getting into personal life, but anyways, we are almost half humanoids.
And they getting that. The HR AGI is here. You know more about it than I do. I think it's going to happen. It better be proactively for the good than reactively for the bad, is the way I really see it, my worldview of technology. Right. So E2E to me, experience to endorsement becomes the other, frontier, which I do see some companies, kind of try to do and so on and so forth. The third part to your last question in terms of this thing is what I use this term called experience alliances. Okay. And I'll give you a very, very simple example. An industry, let me take a very simple industry. Say to say that even no Indian who has beer or who has let's say, an alcoholic beverage consumes it without a moongfali or some kind of a snacks. So the whole experience of having a drink socially is never in isolation of a snack. But not even in modern trade will you find that the packet of bingo is next to the to the whiskey. The same problem I have in many years ago for another person I don't want to name, which is a modern trade space, to say that if you're really selling, why is your paneer or your chicken in one part of your store and your paneer masala another kilometer away? So now the experience alliance, which, and I come to where technology comes in over here, the thought is that today, as a customer, if I want to make you want to make paneer masala for dinner, I need to have the paneer and the rice and the masala as an experience bundle to it. And where technology is coming is your predictive commerce. Technology has the algos today, which right now, what is a Blinkit or a Swiggy? They're saying last time you previously bought this. What is Amazon saying? Those who read this also read this. But if I'm going for a holiday, if I'm buying a ticket or make my trip, who makes their money from group tours mostly, every Indian, every person in the world who goes for a holiday, buys a clothes for a holiday, buys a new pair of sneakers. You go to the mountains, you must be buy a new jacket. Not you're a regular person, but you buy a jacket or you buy beach wear. Where I don't see a place where my holiday package is coming with a Shopper Stop or a, kind of a Zudio or the brand is not important. But how do I, so, this is the third part of the experience alliances that I'm really, really obsessed with across categories. It's like, if you go to a doctor for a consultancy, there's a whole lot of services that come in now, but still getting better. Healthcare is getting consolidated, insurances, but category after category, there's still a category-driven mindset where algos have taken us purely is in terms of past, kind of prediction, not in terms of, taking it to, probably that next level. And therefore, to sum it up in terms of, there's a lot more to talk about this, but to sum it up in terms of the biggest role that technology does for businesses and marketers is to actually implement customer centricity. So all of it that we are seeing here, be it the experience equilibrium, be it the experience, kind of alliances, or be it the E2E, is actually moving the game towards customer centricity, leading to a far more profitable living.
Experience, as you rightly mentioned, experience fundamentally is about customer centricity. That's without having that thought process of customer centricity, you can't deliver experiences to deeper. So yeah, that's fundamental to it. And I really liked about the whole idea of experience alliances. And I think technology is a huge role to play in creating technology alliances. Why? Because you can actually suggest people, because now you are trying to connect products by purpose. That's it. Not by blank. So, as you rightly said, can there be a whiskey which can be paired with bingo? In fact, some time back, a new friend of mine, he was presenting a very interesting case study on which he worked. I did not get into the brand, but this was a wine brand. This was it was a retail company, and their sales grew by more than $1 billion just by making one simple change. They were earlier selling wine by giving the name of the wine, which at least I don't understand what that wine stands for and what does it taste like. But what they started doing is, this is a wine for a birthday gift. This is the wine that you can eat with meat. This is the wine that you can try with fruits, so on and so forth. This basically get the purpose collectivity between why is it literally and any of the other reason that you are buying it for. So I think people, we are not only talking about selling it to connoisseurs, again trying to kind of crash the caste barrier and this structure that we have created in the society. Anyone want to try a wine, he may not have that experience or that finesse of knowing the in-depth of that this wine should go with this fruit. But the shop itself guides it. That if you're trying to have a dinner with 3 friends and you are having Indian food today, this is the wine you should eat. And the wines were wrapped by those categories and purpose. And the sales went through the roof. Excellent. And they made more than $1 billion sales just because of this big change. And that's so this is not only happening in India, by the way. That when you're talking about experience alliances, right? It's global.
Yeah.
Experience alliances is a global phenomena, and companies can use technology to see how they can create these alliances, how they can actually position products on their racks in the right way, rather than just put it there and do a lot of different analysis. But how can you define what goes on the rack and how you actually make it easier for people to buy by purpose rather than just buy by brand?
Absolutely. And as far as the India matter is concerned, the India Insight. Now, I'll give you a very quick example based on the story you said about India and experience alliances globally. Is that something you picked up? So, as I said, the ambitions are all being more and more unified, right? And one of the great levelers I picked up in Gurgaon towards stay there was that how birthday parties for children were one of the great levelers for the aspiring classes. So all the domestic help used to come at home is to see the maybe aspiring birthday party. If you think about it, a birthday party can cost you ₹1,00,000 or 1,000 rupees also. The basic input is a cake, basic input is some streamers, basic input is a return gift. So it's how, again, the experience alliance. It's about how technology can help you get the right customer insight. Like you say for wine, it's like how do you get the right customer insight and make sure that every Indian who's consuming, be it whatever service, we are able to use technology to, give them the set of products and services they want as one package.
So Shivaji, in your experience, have you also seen people looking at the long take of the product design, at least in India, where it can actually enable companies to offer very specific thing for serving specific needs of the masses? Because we don't know who has that need or ambition or aspiration, as you said. But I'm creating a particular product. I'm reducing the time to market. I'm not necessarily going into huge quantity of production because now I can go direct to customers. Do you see any case study in the Indian market where companies are using tech to do this?
So it's a great question. I can tell you one story that is waiting to unfold, which is the category that is well known as wearables, right? It was kind of which help to measure how much you exercise and so on.
True.
So that category has seen a considerable degrowth in the urban markets. Because the insight that I keep hearing from customers is that people don't want to add the further layer of monitoring every aspect of an already stressful exercise, which is doing exercise. Here's all your, time cost. I feel that's a very urban, metrocentric phenomenon. But that may not be the case for the wearables category to play a long tail role in the tier 2 and the rural case. But then the concept of a watch which keeps time does not have the cynicism of, say, oh my God, I'm being stressed, that kind of a thing. So I think that can be something where technology can, and that will give them greater access to technology and also help, brands and marketers generate conversations. That's a very interesting thing that I think can happen. The other case I'd seen, which was partially driven, but in fact, it was a technology case only to a large extent. Domino's Pizza, very interesting case. Domino's Pizza, as you know, is probably one of the earliest food tech brands in the country, right? First there was a telephone, then it became an app, and then 30 minutes of free locations. Even today, Domino's, has set a few benchmarks in terms of what the Swiggy Zomato experience was. So what they figured was that, while the whole delivery to home in 30 minutes was a big thing in cities, because we are super busy people, at least we think we are, and so on. And by the way, the pizza comes in 30 minutes if we eat it in 1 hour. That's a different logic altogether. But when they expanded rapidly, mid-2015 to 20, that period, to tier 1s and tier 2s and so on, they found that the rural audience did not have the same cynicism. So the home delivery orders, again driven by the app usage, was considerably lower in rural areas. So they increased the dining space of those stores. So Domino's in tier 2 and rural has actually dedicated dining, which they don't have in urban stores.
So, Shivari, binding a lot of these thoughts and ideas that we have shared together, if we are not going to create products by segment, and we are not going to target or we are not going to position ourselves so exclusively as we used to do, what would be our way to create products in this era of unification, benefication, and amplification? What will be our way? So think about me who wants to, let's say, launch a coffee brand. Okay, how would I go about it?
So great point. So what I've done in the book, and I just kind of take it here again to show you kind of. So what I've created here is a concept called a unification dashboard. Okay. And unification dashboard is a concept where I'm saying that tomorrow and this can be a service that you actually do in-house, or you can do it as literally an outsourced service. I'm saying there are these areas like education and upskilling, health and wellness, physical mobility, digital mobility, employment and careers, travel and tourism, food and drink, fashion and apparel, so on and so forth, 10 more things, which needs to be tracked on a pan-India basis at a constant period. Okay. From there on, the opportunities are arriving. So tomorrow, if I see wellness is something that is now rapidly picking up, let's say in the F&B space. What is the biggest trend that's happening right now? I'll give you a light example of how this works to your question, which is a highly tech trend. We are seeing the GLP-1 receptors. We are seeing Monjaro, we are seeing Ozempic, Degavi. The big news is that in March, India is going to be a patent-free regime. So 15,000 rupees, which is currently the average expense for that injection and so on, is going to become 1,500 rupees. Wow. Okay. Imagine how that market will expand. Now, if that is my dashboard of health and wellness, there's an opportunity for a fellow in the F&B space, because the biggest thing that happens is a hunger suppressant. You need to have premium food but in smaller quantities. So can I get into a space where today whoever it is, ITC Bingo for all I care, who actually, makes smaller quantity but for premium. Already restaurants over the world are making Monjaro menus because people are rich customers are wanting to eat less but they'll pay them more. It's a version of shrinkflation. It's a different version of inflation. Opportunity for health and wellness guy, opportunity for the apparel guy, opportunity for the mental health guy, opportunity for the matrimonial guy. Every industry, every business, many, not every, but many businesses today have the opportunity to catch on to the hunger suppressant led, great new weight loss Indian story. Wow. So that is my unified dashboard. Okay. So way I do it, I look at this is my dashboard. From here, I figure out what the ambitions are of people. Ambition for me to lose weight may be here, for someone to maybe to, find the right matrimonial choice. That may be a different part. Then I get into my playground and product conversation. But again, the point is, for example, I need to be understanding what is the education and upskilling story going forward. If today an education and upskilling story is leading to, for example, the very tragic incident of peer pressure and deaths, maybe there's an opportunity for the healthcare industry to chip in as a model. So again, the basis of this construct of Unify is please keep your radar on these 10 or 15 customer-centric patterns that are happening. How can we do that? It's a dashboard, and I give it the dashboard, and the dashboard literally is it can be done by a combination of AI and human intervention. It's like, for example, if I'm saying today, India today has now, I just mentioned to you about the Vande Bharat Udan and Gure Desh Ki Aam Nagrik and expressway thing. People are traveling all around, so on and so forth. So the whole thing really is you have a culture in an organization, which I'm trying to, kind of market at this point to say is that to track all this as a strategic kind of a practice. Whether you do it through the market research team, whether you do it through the marketing team. Now, for example, I have something here called senior citizenship, something I'm really obsessed about. I'm calling it the silver power. The 50 to 70 age group in India is waiting for action. Only, if I look at Rose Day kind of living, the kind of senior citizen livings do things, some people, but talking to ITC has launched a brand called Right Shift, which is designed only for this RIGHT, this audience. Tomorrow, if I track senior citizens, now get senior citizens plus Monjaro has one equation. Okay, look at how that opportunity can really be extended. Look at gig economy as a third part. So it's really about putting together a cocktail of this. And my ambition one day is to actually work with you, hopefully, and create a kind of a tech platform wherein all these trackings will lead to these opportunities. Because the understanding of unification is it's a customer-centric word. We have to keep tracking whatever, as you said, entertainment. If the pattern today is micro dramas, 2-minute micro dramas, I mean, there's an opportunity for everyone, including the snacking industry.
So we have to understand that what happens when this trend goes up, what change happens in the other sides of the world, and so it actually happens with my product.
So, or my category H2B. I mean, if you look at the D2C world, I mean, you know it more than I do, 99% or 95% are personal care and wellness, and maybe so on and so forth. How can person of care, if I am person of care and wellness D2C, I will be tracking in turn and seeing, what is happening, for example, in home and family, or what is happening in entrepreneurship. There's something that is, that's the basis thing. The normal thinking of segmentation is, I think of a category, then I look at savvy. Here I look at a mass, I look at a consumer. Can I marry it to my ambition as an entrepreneur and my skill sets and my pocket and my whatever else I want to be?
So I understand it that instead of a top-down model, we are now talking about bottom-up more apps in terms of understanding the opportunity in the market. Absolutely. So we are saying, okay, I will consider 1.4 billion people as my market. That's right. And I will see what are the big trends and changes coming in. That understanding can be done through AI or a tool that can be used by the company around those dashboards that you have worked on.
Absolutely.
And then people can decide, okay, if this is the whole opportunity, how can I go after it? But when you're going after it, and that time, of course, you will have to slice and dice and pick your battles, isn't it?
So that's why my part two comes of 95, which is playground and product. I will decide, look, it's very simple. I'll decide that, look, I have skill sets to serve the great Indian appetite. For example, I have this. So my playground is the appetite, my playground is the mobility, or my playground is health and wellness. I decide, look, I'm an engineer in healthcare or whatever. I want to play in the health and wellness area. So within that, I decide my playground and then I sharply figure my product. So for example, I'll go back to the Monjaro example because that's going to be live this year. Okay. Tomorrow, if there is an impact on suppose my whole story is in terms of fashion and apparel, that's my playground. What is the impact of a vastly reducing Indian weight on the fashion industry? If I'm into if I'm into healthcare, what is going to be? Can I now start getting into post Monjaro packages, which is going to be? Can I be the first diagnostic to say, we provide you integrated services to figure out that all your other critical metrics are operating or not?
I mean, Shivaji, as you know, I work a lot with insurance companies, right? What would be its impact on insurance business according to you? Okay, or what tech can insurance use, or how they can use combination of tech and non-tech, levers to navigate this big shit that is coming, where we are seeing that India may become, right now it's a diabetes capital of the world. India may not remain the diabetes capital of the world, and we may have a healthier population. So, what kind of a shift that you see there?
So, great question, multiple opportunities. So, if I look at the health insurance industry, where penetration remains a very big challenge, I think, and that is the key challenge. So, I think if I now need to quickly look back and say what have been the historical barriers of penetration. The historical barrier, and I limited experience, I worked on this, people don't renew health insurance, I figure, because कुछ तो हुआ नहीं. कैंसर भी नहीं हुआ, आर्टिफिशियल डे हुआ, तो क्या फायदा क्या है ना? तो कितना कुछ मिला नहीं, फायदा नहीं हुआ, नहीं हुआ है. So I'm just saying. So now maybe there's a couple of things that needs to be done. If I was, look at again my third part of the story, which is amplify when I create a brand energy and brand expression, I will look at actually looking at the mindset, say, of a newly fit kind of in India, and talk about how to say that, if you spend money on more, so it's basically Monjaro plus diet plus insurance is equal to the new fitting. I will make insurance, the issue with insurance has been a very kind of a mirrored approach. I will make insurance, again for my customer-centric unified view, fit into a larger lifestyle ambition of the customer. If you spend 15,000 a month or for a Monjaro, if you spend rupees X on your overall, you're now buying millets and you're buying brown rice or whatever, this is the last piece of the puzzle that you have to do. Insurance has climbed from that, the typical LIC kind of a morbid imagery to ICICI saying, the Jivika license, which is a liberalized kind of a version of insurance. Now I need to look at insurance as the role in life and not as role of insurance in life. And technology can really help me do this because I need to get to this guy and figure out what are his predictive, what is his buying pattern. If I have insurance, I'll be living in Blinkit. I'll be living in Blinkit. I'm trying to understand what these fellows are trying to buy, getting my algos in place to say, what are the patterns? Because if penetration is my kind of target, I will try and fit into this. If someone is going the upward, northwards trend, I'll fit in insurance there. That's the way.
Because if I can track what the person is buying, we know what quality of food is the person consuming. Correct. Based on that, I know what should be the variety and as a particular person. So here, technology can be used here by integrating data from these platforms, could offer individuals habits and consumption to see how his overall health score will stay. So I was not talking what about his health score is today, but how is it changing in the real time? And therefore price the product according to
price the product and also it a target. some equally about financial blend on and product. How do I create a brand story? What is it like? Again, there's a brand I don't want to name, not because I'm connected. There's a branding who's just I hear in health insurance who's claiming 100% claim fulfillment guarantee, which I find is not possible, right? I mean, I do understand that the nationalized guys have a better grow, but it is not possible for a private player to go and claim 100% claim guarantee. That's to be a false promise. So that is not the way to market. And it's a new brand, means not important. But it's something that I really think that, again, this whole unified customer centric, is there a new breed of tier 1s and tier 2s who will value that insurance product? Because I put upgrade as a very fundamental story of my book, right? But that is where we are all unified in a.
They are not buying it today, but can they buy it tomorrow? Is there aspiration for him tomorrow? If you and the reason can be many. Today we are thinking about the reason maybe just for safety, but the reason can be many. We don't even know what reason they will buy for.
Absolutely. And a brilliant point, you're making a category again, Simsoko why, and there's this whole term I picked up called from somewhere in the US called sober curiosity. How do Gen Zs, if they're not drinking, they're not drinking. And it's very interesting. We would think in our time, of course I was slightly older than you, in our time, those who did not drink were the very serious students or the highly value system based people or with a very, very strong tradition and family, which we respect. It was a very serious reason not to drink. We put this way, serious possible reason, and that I have also been through that phase, so I appreciate that. Today, the research says people don't drink, the Gen Zs don't drink because it can slow them down, because it is a barrier to their making their millions and their billions and fulfilling their ambitions. To your point about insurance, suddenly the motivating barrier for someone wanting to stay sober is, boss, but if I start drinking, I will delay my podcast.
Oh. I may not get my promotion because, I may not be able to do the job at a level
exactly to do. Slows me down is the insight. Slows me down was never the insight 20 years ago. Oh. There were other insights. The value system, which is all to be deeply respected. So that's where I'm saying the story of insurance is. Can we find from the larger unification platform a reason for the upgrader to actually consider it not for the reasons that we've been buying it, maybe from a wholly different perspective.
No, I like to. Sure. We are getting in a very higher scale of conversation here. I like to bring it down to a more senior level for people who are absolutely in functional roles. AI in marketing.
Sure.
Marketing is something that you live and breathe by.
Sure.
AI is something that I'm researching and trying to get a hang of and see how my clients can get real value out of it. How can AI really help in marketing? With a small right. I'm not talking about using AI to make nice Facebook posts and doing norms, because that's, I think, the stupidest use of AI. It is the most common and simple use of AI, but that's not the real value that AI gives us. I think there's a lot more that AI can give us as a marketers. How can companies use AI in the marketing? According to you, what are the highest value areas where AI can be used within marketing by companies? You might already be using that, or you might already be seeing your clients using it, or you might aspire the people use it, but they're not using it. In all the three categories are okay.
Yeah, so I think there are three parts in as a marketer, and this whole journey India has faced, chapter in my book is from VCom to MECom to PreCom. And VCom was, shopping for us always was a collective experience. It wasn't be buying a car, being a thing. But you say VCom, it's VCOS. VCOS. V as in V, as a family. So VCom is the term I've coined to saying V-commerce, which is we as a family. We used to go and buy a kurta together, a pajama together. We used to go and buy a scooter together too. So the families used to, the shopping was an event as a family community event. With technology, what has happened is more in terms of what I was calling MECom. So the community aspect, when it has increased in a tech way, it has gone off in a real world way. Because now we are buying, when we buy clothes, I mean, it's no longer that whole family jamboree experience that really goes in. Third part is what is called predictive commerce, which is pre-com. And pre-com predictive commerce is where the whole world of AI comes in, which to me is where the we and me can really blend. And that's where I will talk to you. So within predictive commerce, 2-3 things happen. Right now, the way AI and prediction is happening at a very basic level is basically reminding customers of previous purchases. Isn't it? I mean, you have bought this, you have bought that. That too, it is happening at a primitive level. But I had a stand put into my heart in 2019 in Fortis. They never got in touch with me. I can go down that way, sir. they lost me. And when they could have got me by the bollocks for the rest of my life. Huh. Where they could have caught me very strongly for the rest of my life. I'm just changing this up. So that's what. So the point I'm saying is that is so where I'm saying the future of AI really is. Opportunity for AI is where technology and ethics and social responsibility and sustainability can come together. And may I suggest, therefore, to say we spoke, for example, of Monjaro. We spoke of Momonjaro and so on and so forth. We understand a certain predictive pattern of people buying maybe health food or so on. What is AI doing? Currently saying last time we bought this, Latipo. Can I take it to the next level? Is saying maybe you need this. Can I therefore say that your neck Ananta Spa, I'm just giving an example. If you're heavily into this, I'm saying that it seems you haven't taken a holiday. Can I get into predictive patterns which are, for the good of all?
So predictive and prescriptive very.
Predictive, exactly. Predictive and prescriptive from the lens of choice, there you decide. It's very simple. Now, tomorrow, if I am buying a certain kind of data, 1mg knows the kind of drugs I'm buying. If I'm having beta blockers, if I'm having statins, what is stopping Tata 1mg from offering me or saying that, there's this lovely 2-day, 3-night package in Goa or Puri or etc. But you can just take the week or we know it's your year end and you can just take the week or just giving you that to me is what I would call predictive commerce, which is not just transaction, but it's about sustainability, it's about community, and it's about a larger social purpose behind transaction. That is one thing that I think is the biggest way forward for AI to take the game forward. I mean, I'm not saying that Domino's will say stop having us. No, that's not the point. But I'm sure there is nothing stopping us from saying that we know you love your pizza, but here's, can I take you to maybe a Onitsuka Tiger is the wrong example. So can I take you to a place where I actively propel and do more of subtle fitness cues that come in towards a purchase story? That's one story. If I look at healthcare, and I take this very seriously because healthcare is an area where AI can really, and you're aware of all these ways by which a lot of primary healthcare is now being done by AI. Companies in Calcutta also who do this properly, and a lot of primary screening is being done. How do I build that bridge between a primary analysis and a checkup? So how does it work? People go and they take a, let's say, a mammogram or they take a X-ray and they'll tell you whether you're on a risk area or not, and they'll go home. But how do I actually link that to say that, at that point of time, AI's job is really to not just stop there, but to actually take it forward to the level of fulfillment? So you mentioned insurance, you mentioned so on and so forth. So I've seen this whole aspect of community, sustainability, and transaction coming together is the golden opportunity for predictive commerce, which only AI can do accurately. Because AI will tell you that X number of people who do this probably has a chance of doing that.
True. So basically, how companies use the data that they have got in a proper way, not just in saying, if you bought this, you can buy this, but going beyond it. Trying to understand again what you are trying to say in the entire conversation today is that can we go beyond the obvious? There is obviously something which is written in between lines. Can we go and read what is written in between lines? It's not that difficult. You can use AI to read in between lines to see what can be prescribed. And that is the power of AI potentially. Yes. And that is the power of AI which normal people cannot do. So if I'm a shopkeeper, if I'm sitting in the shop attending the client, I may not be able to guide him because that needs a lot of knowledge and data crunching in my mind and exposure, which I may not have. But AI, of course, has that. And based on the data that the company has, can it suggest in a prescriptive and predictive manner that's fair what this person is most likely to buy? And then can I suggest that in the given context? So it's very why you should buy.
Role of life, you're in life.
Because if you're not telling me why you should buy it, then of course it is just like another push, unnecessary push. Because people don't expect this to happen, that you will be able to understand his medical situation and based on that you will suggest in an Ayurvedic retreat in Goa. So until and unless you are able to link these two, and people will not buy or they will see like this is too much. Now, going back to another important point that you mentioned earlier, I'm coming back to that again. Experience alliances. This means that there will also be a lot of data alliances happening in future. Absolutely. So if I am having if my product offering is very close to another product offering that Mr. X or Mr. Y is offering, I may also try to do a data alliance with them. Of course, under the DPDP Act, whichever way we have,
That is anyway beyond.
yeah. And how do I basically ensure that the experience of the customer is beyond what he ever thought about? And he had actually ethically and rightfully offered the things that he should get to fulfill his overall purpose. So what I understand is that we are moving from a world which is moving from need to purpose. Correct. And our objective as marketers should be to identify the purpose by seeing the buying behavior and then try to fulfill that. Absolutely. But tell me one thing, like, Kareem, I mean, from my side, I would suggest that every business starts hoarding data, which they already do, many of them do. So if I go to any restaurant, they will not even let me take a seat without taking down my mobile number. But the problem is that they have no way to come and suggest me what should I eat even after I have dined there 5 times, etc. Plus, they take my birthday, but they never offer me a birthday coupon. I don't know why they take all this. So if you're a restaurant owner and if you're listening to it, please stop taking my phone number and my data if you cannot use it to make my life easier and better.
Well, absolutely brilliant. And I think a big point that you mentioned about how you use it for a very effective and a, kind of a genuine purpose. That's a big point to make. And also the point that, whatever we do with our, the one point I want to make in sustainability also is how do we create the human chatbot equilibrium? That's a challenge that industries across the world are facing. We have cases in the UK where people are now sacked the chatbots and getting humans back and so on. So I think that's a operating, kind of a challenge. But AI for the power of good, like the anthropic vision, as opposed to maybe some other visions, is I think where the next to all the things that you mentioned right now, to all the is really the next frontier that is going to be the next experience front.
Yeah, because I think, Shivaji, the chatbots are built raw. They are built subpar quality because, and people are very scared to give any authority to decide and act to the chatbots. Right? They can make mistakes, and so can your people. So if you are not training and then letting it operate within certain guardrails, within certain limit that you are setting, then this is the amount of money. If that gets wasted because of a wrong decision by a chatbot, it's okay. People are trying to tie it out so strongly that the chatbot just can do A, B, and C. So it's almost like a if-else loop. And then it has to be taken over by a human being. So this is becoming very frustrating. Why? Because first of all, I go and talk to a chatbot. Then after a few conversations, it basically collects some information but can't do anything. And then I'm thrown to a human being. Or even worse, at times I'm just thrown an email that, this could not be solved, we are sorry, and I will soon connect it to a real human being. So you're actually causing more trouble for the
Non-value adding intervention.
So I think that is one big challenge that I'm seeing, which can be solved. I'm sure it can be solved. And it can make life much easier.
And one quick point, again, this is a tip to a lot of marketers and brands to again navigate the world of AI. This is from my perspective, is that, see, AI fundamentally is about, taking what is there available in the domain, the public space, right? I think brands should invest on old-fashioned PR once again. Getting lots and lots of articles published in as many legitimate publications as possible, be it digital or online. That way help the chances of the chatbot even, kind of making them a more of a recommendatory kind of a thing. Because something that I more and more figured is that the volume of available content and not just the quality of that content is also becoming an important determining factor. I don't have data evidence for this, but this is increasingly becoming a pattern that, so brands should really get a lot of content out in the market.
No, big. So, Shivaji, as we come towards the PR, I think we had 2 hours of conversation, and I feel that we have been talking so long. So, what would be the last few points that you would like to, like, few core points that you want to either reiterate, actionables that people can take home and say, okay, let me think about it because this really makes sense, and I would like to give it a thought and then come back and execute it, or maybe shoot an email to Shivaji because I disagree with it. Sure. So what would be those 3?
So I think the fundamental thoughts, again, as I've been discussing, is really about how the transition from a traditional divide and rule, which is segmentation, targeted positioning, to unify, magnify, amplify. And unify is the core of it. The whole idea is that the simple thesis I'm saying is that while there are many Indias in other ways, in terms of buying behavior, I strongly believe that there is one India. Okay. And guess That's where I put in that, why am I saying this? It's because unification is really about unifying access and ambitions. I already mentioned how the mobile phone has changed the way the Jam Trinity has changed access. I spoken about the three aspects of ambitions, be it survival, be it indulgence, or be it development and self-growth, and how they're actually, kind of intertwining.
Yeah.
We've spoken also about the unified dashboard. There's kind of 50 areas of, kind of exploration that we should all track as individuals and businesses. And you'll be amazed to see how things are converging as a pattern, be it healthcare, be it education, be it fashion, be it wellness, and so on and so forth. And then really focus on the playground you want to play with, focus on the product you want to do, and build brand energy. Build a brand which is really going to come from a very strong customer perspective. I know it sounds like a cliche, but customer centricity remains the biggest challenge, especially in a world where technology is driving innovation and there's a manufacturer's bias of a new kind that's really kind. So customer centricity, the beginning of customer centricity in India starts with unifying our nation as a buying mindset that upgrade is possibly the biggest secret sauce.
Yeah, and then I take some points from you, Shivaji, which I would like to just summarize. One big one is, of course, upgrade. I start with upgrade because I think everyone, in India and even globally wants to upgrade themselves. Nobody wants to see him in themselves in the same place as they were. So upgradation is a emotion which is very strong in people. And how can you use this emotion and actually offer something more to people who are at a given stage? So understanding what stage they are in and where they can go and how you can take them to that particular pace. I think that's a brilliant.
Just quick interjection. I believe this upgrade story is far more stronger in India than many other parts of the world. The advanced West is very happy just living their standard kind of a life. So, to him,
Is stronger, much stronger. Yeah. And I think West will follow. Even West will follow, of course will. Because first of all, I think India will do it. Then the other countries, which we call as the third world countries, will follow it. And it's already followed that. You see countries like Nigeria, as of this countries, they're already following this theme. And then of course the West will follow because the cycle will happen. Then we went into how this, we have moved from a problem-centric product design to a more delivery-centric product design. And delivery is primarily about experience, as you nicely said. So focus on experience, and experience is a combination of product and services. Experience does not stand alone on its feet, right? And when we talk about experience, I am taking three major keywords, key phrases actually, Shigari, that you shared with us. One is experience equilibrium. That how do you basically keep stepping up and change the overall combination of product and service to create an experience which becomes the de facto standard, not only in that industry, but at a much larger scale. The second thing that I take is experience to endorsement. We are talking about how can you create technology interventions so that the experience can be converted into endorsement as soon as possible. Because today's world is not buying based on advertising. Today's world is not buying based on, paid propaganda. Today's world is going to buy through genuine customer feedback. And people, I think, understand how to get the genuine customer feedback. It's all there, right? And the third point that I take from that whole experience paradigm that you have been talking about is the experience alliances. It's really interesting for me because how collaboration will happen more and more, how people will piggyback each other, how they will align themselves so that the customer experience is uplifted. I think that's going to be a phenomenal thing, and it's going to drive business with what I call a zero CAC, because you're not spending money on advertising, you're not spending money on anything else. You're just spending money on figuring out with who should you align, and that also allows to rub off the trust factor between these two brands. That's how, right? I mean, if it's right or wrong, I don't know, but yes, you get the rub off of the trust factor. And for experience alliances, I think data analytics. That's right, deep data analytics of consumer behavior as well as product buying pattern, and understanding the purpose of the purchase of the product is critical.
Correct.
So here you are going to use analytics deeply to really make a big difference in your business and then the person's business. Uh, Last but not the least, I also take up your thoughts on using AI for marketing. Of course, AI can be used for marketing in terms of creating content, in terms of creating visuals, and all those things, which is more advertising. You can also use it to understand your campaigns and behaviors. But I think a much bigger use of AI is to again understand, customers' buying behavior, and how do you prescribe and position new offerings in front of the customer based on his past data that you capture. So when you are so I think from my end, I would add two things. One is capture as much data as you can, even if you can't afford AI, even if you don't want to invest in data analytics, even if you think AI is an alien thing and you don't want to invest in it, but please capture as much data as you can at every possible point. I'd be absolute fanatic about capturing data and storing it. The second thing that I will say is that use as much data as you can. I'm not, again, prescribing that what level you should get in, but just collecting data and which can be used very easily. So, for example, collecting data of a customer who's visiting a restaurant, but never getting an update or an offer or a new news from that restaurant is an absolute waste of that information. Again, I'm getting an example of a restaurant, but the same is applicable in many, many places. And trust me, this experience you yourself can go through on a daily basis. So technology can only help you or your business if you want to help yourself and your business as well. It's not going to just come and do the intervention by itself. So yeah, so with those final remarks,
Thank you very much. Greatly, I have very well articulated, and I think I will borrow your articulation for my future talk. It's pretty very much.
and I would be more than happy if you they do so.
It is very much. I think it's a wonderful session and really enjoyed talking.
Same yes. Thank you so much, Shivaji. And anyone
Who know me personally, if you are looking for a copy of this wonderful book, but trust me, this is not an easy read. You need to focus on this book if you want to read it. And if you need this, write to me. And to the next 50 people who write to me, who has my personal network, I'll be more than happy to send you over a free copy of this. Thank you.